Hello there, my name is Samuel Kander and welcome to the show. I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to talk about a show that has kind of thrown me for a loop, something that was announced, well, a long time ago. On December 18th, 2020, thousands watched the end of The Mandalorian Season 2. It was a magnificent end to a show in a rather unfortunate year. We were reintroduced to a fan-favorite character, Luke Skywalker, who hadn't been touched since the sequels, and even then, he had grown in age. Here, through the use of visual effects, we were reunited with Mark Hamill, but he looked as if he did in the 70s. The show ended and we thought it was over, but thanks to the MCU making post-credit scenes common practice, we were teased that Boba Fett, another returning character, would be getting his own show. Today, we are talking about that show, the Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett, as I said, throws me for a loop. There's so much that I like about the show, but there's also so much that just doesn't feel right. When I watched The Mandalorian, I knew that that show felt special. In fact, as much as it's fallen from its spot, it's my favorite show of all time. It just feels so Star Wars at its core, at least to me it does. In fact, I had a script from forever ago and it was a massive project of mine that never really panned out. However, I could talk about that show for hours. Plus, I feel like I should mention that The Mandalorian has been the least controversial piece of Star Wars since, well, the original trilogy. Sure, the Clone Wars and the prequels are loved now, but at the time of their release, there's major controversy, and of course with the sequels now, major controversy, so hopefully that'll cool with time. The point is, The Mandalorian came out and was almost universally loved. It brought back so many loved characters in Season 2, and it seemed like, well, everyone loved it. The Book of Boba Fett is a bit more complicated than that. This show is a perfect example of that horse meme. So many episodes are good, like an intricately drawn picture of a horse, but there are others that really just look like a 4-year-old's drawing. There are episodes that don't really make any sense or add to anything to the show. I mean, you have stuff that didn't really go over well, like the modders and their cyberpunk-esque design. Most episodes early on just sort of setting up stuff without any rhyme or reason, like why are the Hutts in the show if they only matter for a few seconds? Nothing stays an overarching plot or villain other than Boba trying to become the daimyo of Tatooine. It's not a crime organization thriller, it's just sort of messing around with the Star Wars universe. And some of the ideas really work, and some of the ideas really don't. But here is where we pause and get off the whole negativity train and talk about what I do really like about the show, because believe it or not, there is a lot I do like about the show. Temuera Morrison is a joy to see as always. His passion for this role is inspiring, and I love to see him get to return. I love seeing him in interviews, especially with Ming-Na Wen, who I would like to talk about next. This woman was at the core of my childhood. To be honest, apparently, I was obsessed with Mulan as a child, according to my parents, and that makes a lot of sense seeing as Mulan is my favorite Disney movie. Anyway, Ming-Na Wen is here in the Star Wars universe, and I love it. Fennec Shand is a great addition to the Star Wars universe, especially since Cad Bane was introduced way back in the Clone Wars. It was about time that we get introduced to a mainstay bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe. I love her dynamic with Boba and how they rule. It's nice to see the opposite of Cad Bane and Boba's relationship. Fennec, although introduced to Boba much later in life, is being taught about compassion and respect rather than cruelty and fear. This seems to be an overarching part of the show, which I'll touch on later. It was great to see her inclusion here, The Mandalorian, and The Bad Batch. Other inclusions I love to see include Cobb Vanth, Din Djarin, Cad Bane, Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Grogu, and R2-D2. In fact, this may have been my favorite part of the show, that is to say, episodes 5 and 6, which I think about without a shadow of doubt are some of the best pieces of Star Wars that I have ever seen. I watched with interest as Din spoke with the armorer on Mandalorian history and explained the importance of the Darksaber. I love the fight between Vizsla and Din over said Darksaber, and it was amazing to see what's getting set up for the future of a character that I love. Manda going back to Tatooine and getting a new ship was incredible. I love the choice of the N1 Starfighter, as it really hasn't been used since the Phantom Menace, and I think the chrome color perfectly suits Mando's Beskar. Oh, and of course we get to see a BD unit in live action for the first time, which is something that is really cool. For those of you that don't know, a BD unit named BD-1 was featured prevalently in the game Jedi Fallen Order, which is coincidentally the only decent game that EA has put out in recent years. The return of Luke Skywalker was magical, and that is a huge credit to the visual effect artist behind this project. He looked 10 times better than he did at the end of The Mandalorian, and it really felt like he was back, you know? It felt like Luke Skywalker for a majority of the time, and I'm not going to lie, I got emotional. Seeing Luke jump through the Force with Grogu on his back just felt so nostalgic. He felt so wise and connected to the Force, and he felt like a proper Jedi Knight. I love to see the transition between Padawan and Knight in Star Wars, and this does not disappoint at all. There's a part of me that wants to see him again, but I would also be equally happy if we just left him here. It was also great to see him conversing with Ahsoka and her mentioning his father. It hit a special place in my heart. Also, Rosario Dawson does an amazing job, period. She's an awesome actress. And before I move on, I just have to mention Cad Bane, which completely came left field. I was not expecting his inclusion at all, but it was perfect. It represents the overarching plot of the show that Boba has grown past his teachings of Cad Bane. After living with the Tuskens for so many years and adopting their morals, he changed immensely. And when they have their duel, Cad Bane goes for the tried and true shot to the chest, which knocks Boba to the ground. He takes off the helmet, a symbol that once brought great fear to anyone he faced against. Now, stripped of that symbol by his old mentor, he uses his teachings to fight and kill Cad Bane with a stab to the chest. I would argue that Cad Bane is really Boba's foil in the show, representing his past life versus the new one that Boba has cut out for himself. Now, many have pointed out that there is a blinking light on his chest indicating he was still alive, but I would be okay if this was the end for Cad Bane. He served as a major antagonist multiple times in the Clone Wars and in the Bad Batch. Now, with his inclusion in this show, I wouldn't be surprised or mad if this was his last. I mean, plus it was cool to see him in live action, which I have to say, I really liked his look. I was surprised to see the controversy around that, but I mean, if it's okay with Dave Filoni, then it's okay with me. So those were my favorite parts of the show. Mando, Luke, Cad Bane, and all those other characters I just mentioned. But here's where I am perplexed. None of those characters are Boba Fett. Now, did I dislike Boba in the show? No, not at all. I loved him. However, there is one core issue surrounding the show. It just doesn't feel like one. Not properly, anyway. When about half the show is Boba stuff and the other half is, well, not, I feel like there is an issue with that. It really just fills in the gaps between Boba clawing his way out of the Sarlacc pit and finding Fennec Shand in the desert, which I don't think is a problem, but it seems that the modern crime boss stuff really falls to the wayside. It's just a small snapshot of Boba Fett in, well, Mando Season 3, which again, I love The Mandalorian. It's my favorite show of all time and it has a special place in my heart. It's Disney's flagship Star Wars right now and I don't blame them at all for how popular that show is. I mean, I just saw an ad the other day basically saying that the Book of Boba Fett serves as an expansion to the Mandalorian mythos, but to have Mando Season 3 in the Book of Boba Fett, it just seems very disingenuous at the end of the day. So many have been waiting for a fair shot with this character. He's a fan favorite and I'm not surprised at all to see the excitement for this show, and simultaneously, I'm not surprised at all to see this backlash. Well, anyway, that's my thoughts on one of the most controversial franchises with the most infighting I've ever seen. Did I love the show? Yes, but as I said, for many fans who are expecting a solo Boba Fett show exploring a character that they love, I get why they were disappointed. There was some stuff that was annoying or displeasing, and at the end of the day, the show is just straight up confusing. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? Feel free to leave them in the comments below. And while you're down there, why don't you subscribe perhaps if you would like to see more of my content. And if you do, thank you. It means a lot to me. Also, leave a like if you enjoyed, as that helps in with the algorithm or whatever. I tried to understand, but it really doesn't make much sense. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.